And back home, the government has issued its response to the population policy paper released by the opposition Workers' Party 2 weeks ago. It says if a realistic adjustment is applied to WP's projections, the population would in fact rise beyond 6 million in 2030, as opposed to WP's figure of about 5.8 million. The government says one of the main differences is that the Workers' Party assumes a higher mortality rate and lower life expectancy of the citizen population. It also says the Workers' Party's assumptions on labour force participation rates are much higher than those achieved by advanced developed economies today. And if that is not met, Singapore may have to make up a shortfall of 100,000 in the workforce. As for WP's proposal to freeze foreign workforce growth, the government says the party may have underestimated the economic impact. It says the 0.5% per year difference in GDP growth between the two proposals would be enough to disrupt the economy. And the Minister of State for Manpower also spoke about this in Parliament today. She called WP's proposal on the labour force participation rate hopeful but unrealistic.
The Workers' Party has said it's possible to grow the labour force participation rate by tapping on women and seniors. It said the rate for those aged between 15 and 69 years can go up to 78.7% by 2025 compared to 72.2% last year. But the Manpower Ministry says Singapore's total labour force participation rate is already one of the highest in the world.
Labour force participation rate for older Singaporeans tend to be lower than that of the younger segments of the workforce. And as our workforce is becoming older and with a low TFR, our overall labour force participation rate will decrease over time despite improvements across age groups.
Dr. Kaur also cautioned against pushing for a more progressive tax system to tackle the issue of income inequality. She noted that the top 11% of earners in Singapore already contribute almost 80% of the total tax takings.
Singapore is already far more progressive than the US and OECD average in terms of personal income tax. So there may not be much scope to raise income taxes here without affecting Singapore's international competitiveness.
Dr. Kaur acknowledged the opposition's support for measures to address the income divide. Pointing to initiatives like the higher workfare income supplement, she said this year's budget redoubles efforts on social equity and to uplift the lives of low-wage workers and the vulnerable elderly.